Hey everybody, so we're going to get into Exodus 2. So here we go. Let me just get this, and here we go. Alright, so chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Now, a man of the house of Levi went in and took as wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son, and seeing he was a beautiful child, they hid him for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes, daubed it with asphalt, with the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river bank. Now his sister was watching from a distance to learn what would be done with him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And seeing the ark among the reeds, she sent a maid to get it. So when she opened the ark, she saw the child crying, and the daughter of Pharaoh had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." So his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" So Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." Then the maiden went and called the child's mother. Pharaoh's daughter then said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I'll pay you." So the woman took the child and nursed him. Now, when the boy was grown, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." So we have Moses being born. His mother and father are both of the tribe of Levi. He's a healthy baby boy, but he's born at a really bad time because Pharaoh's trying to have all male infants drowned in the Nile. So Moses' mother does manage to hide him for 3 months, but at some point she's not able to hide him anymore. So she makes a basket and seals him in it with pitch and tar. One of the intentions here is to draw us back to Noah and the ark. So he's presented as a new Noah in a lot of ways, and so she puts him in a basket, which is an ark, and the Nile is like the flood, right? Um, in some ways, anyways. So she lays him in the reeds by the riverbank, and Moses' sister Miriam keeps watch. Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses and sees he's circumcised, so he's an Israelite. She has mercy and compassion and decency, and she refuses to drown this baby. So Pharaoh's daughter seems to have more respect for the Egyptian deities and the sacredness of the Nile than Pharaoh does. Moses' sister shows up in front of her and asks if she can find a Hebrew woman who can nurse Moses for her, as she is adopting and can't nurse Moses, obviously. Pharaoh's daughter sends her off to find someone, and Miriam obviously brings back her mother, Jochebed. I think I said that right. It may be possible, and it seems to me very likely, Pharaoh's daughter knew Miriam was related, and Jochebed was his biological mother. Can't say that for 100%, but when you read the text, it kind of seems that way. Being under Pharaoh, she would have been educated. Royal and noble women in ancient Egypt generally received an education because Egyptian society found it necessary in order for them to be suitable wives for managing the household, family businesses, and be suitable wives for upper class men. Pharaoh's daughter is not some moron, just to point that out. It seems plausible to me that she also deduced pretty quickly Moses was Jochebed's son and decided to help her, at least in some way, spare the child and his parents the grief. So, if this is the case, in my opinion, this could be that she's also doing a solid act of rebellion against her own father, perhaps because she may see him being an agent of Apophis or chaos rather than Mayat order. So that's just a little speculation for me, but I see that a little bit in the scriptures. So, like, tell me if you agree with that or not. Um, so Moses' name, Pharaoh's daughter, when he's grown enough to eat solids, names him Moses, and Moses in Egyptian means son of or child, which is Mose. In Hebrew, it's close to the word for drew out of the water, Masha, which is why sometimes you'll see people like their name is Moshe or Masha. It's a derivative, it's a version of Moses. Um, so was Moses his whole name, or did he have an Egyptian name with the deity to it and later drop it to serve the God of Israel as his prophet? It's possible, but there's no way to really prove whether or not he did, definitively or not, and everyone has their guesses. So, but it is possible because, well, you see Moses' sister Miriam. Her name is actually Miriamun, which is Miriam in our English transliteration, but it also means beloved of Ammon. So she has a pagan god as her own name, and it never gets taken out the rest of Torah. Aaron is also an Egyptian name. So just a little interesting fact there. Um, so another question that you might ask since I'm telling you this, but like ritual worship made you Israel, not ethnicity. And why would these Levites have pagan names? Well, we'll see many Levites who get named in Torah who have Egyptian names. This will be discussed more in a later podcast, but here is one of the first sections of scripture where we see it very clearly that the people who will become the original nation of Israel are not all ethnically or biologically united. They're not all literally biologically descended from Abraham. Some are, but not all of them. Why is that? Because that's not how tribe and clan identities worked in the ancient world. Identity happened through ritual worship, not ethnicity. Some examples. Number one, servants in a Levite household were considered Levites because they would be part of the ritual worship of Yahweh. We saw this early in Genesis with Joseph and his Egyptian wife. People need to get this ethnic stuff out of their understanding of the Bible because it's a modernist take and an innovation that's being imposed by people who misunderstand or purposely want to deceive and try to make Yahweh an ethnically exclusive deity. Number two, the third high priest of Israel is black and from Africa. Nation Israel is ethnically diverse. The idea that the Torah, Old Testament, and salvation are some ethnic thing is a false narrative. Moses, Miriam, and Aaron could very well have been, in modern terms, Egyptians biologically, but they are Levites regardless because their family is ritually part of the clan and tribe of Levi. Thus, they are ritually Hebrews. Remember, Israel has not received Torah and its laws yet, so as of now in Exodus 2, they're not that radically different from the Egyptian way of living, aside from worship of Yahweh alone and circumcision as a religious rite. So we also see this in the Old Testament from Paul in the New Testament that Abraham is your father if you're faithful. So it does not matter if genetically your ancestor is Abraham or not. And it's the same way in Exodus and Genesis and all throughout Torah. So now we're going to continue. Verses 11 through 25. Thus it came to pass in those days when Moses was grown, he went out to his brothers and saw their burdens. He also saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his brethren of the sons of Israel. So he looked this way or that, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out on the second day, he saw two Hebrew men fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, "Why are you hitting your neighbor?" And he replied, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" So Moses was alarmed and said, "Surely this thing is known." So when Pharaoh heard this matter, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters who fed the sheep of their father Jethro, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs with water to water their father's flock. Then the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said to them, "How is it you came so soon today?" They replied, "An Egyptian delivered us from the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered our sheep." So he said to his daughters, "Where is he? Where have you left this man? Why have you left him? Call him, that he may eat bread." So Moses dwelt with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moses. So the woman conceived and bore Moses a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, "I've been a sojourner in a foreign land." Now in the course of time it happened, the king of Egypt died. Then the children of Israel groaned because of their labors and cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the labors. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then God looked upon the children of Israel and was made known to them. So Moses grows up an Egyptian pagan, but at some point he goes out, sees the Hebrew slaves, and notices Egypt treats them harshly. He sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and when he sees there's no one around, he premeditatively murders this Egyptian and hides him in the sand. So he's educated in the ways of Egypt, grows up in Pharaoh's court. He would be very literate, likely only able to read and write in hieratic, which is Egyptian writing, but also other Eastern cultures as well, Hebrew included. And Moses would have been familiar with writing cuneiform tablets because they used those in Pharaoh's inner court too. So Moses would be very familiar with multiple cultures. Being Pharaoh's adopted grandson, he could likely get away with murder, but he just did it to protect an Asiatic slave. So one is probably going to ask, where are Moses' loyalties? Is he loyal to Pharaoh or to these slave people? So that's probably why Pharaoh decided we're going to have Moses killed, right? The next day, he sees two Hebrews fighting, tries to break it up, and they reply with, "Who made you prince and judge over us? Do you want to kill us like you did the Egyptians?" So they know what he did, and he gets really scared by it. And it gets back to Pharaoh, so he commands Moses be killed. So Moses takes off and begins dwelling in the land of Midian, where he finds a well. So, yeah, there you go. Moses in the Hebrew text also lived to be 120 years. His life can be divided into 4 periods of 40: birth, 40, 80, and lastly 120. Moses is so now he's out in the desert, and he's a highly educated adult out in the world, and he's fled out to the desert by himself. He's in the land of Midian, where the Midianites live, out in the Sinai desert. And so these are basically nomadic Bedouins. The Midianites trace their forefathers to be Ishmael and Esau, for the most part, and cousins of Israel. They live nomadically. We find out more about them in Deuteronomy 2. Moses finds them and lives with them. So the priest of Midian has 7 daughters, and his name is Jethro. No one can claim to own the well there, but some shepherds were there and harassed the daughters, so Moses intervenes. Jethro likely is a title for Midianite priest among these tribes. The fact that he's identified as a priest in this way means that there also would have been other people from other clans and other tribes that would come to him for advice, to settle matters, and to have large feasts, etc., and sacrifices to Yahweh. Moses rescuing them at the well echoes Isaac and Rebekah a little bit, but also Jacob. Verse 18 says Reuel is the name of their father. Jethro is likely his title, but it is also possible that Jethro's 7 daughters are his granddaughters. Some traditions have Reuel as Jethro, even though Jethro's name is also Hobab in Numbers 10:29. So, Reuel has Moses come to dinner. Time passes, because there's a little time skipping there. Moses becomes part of the family and marries Zipporah. They have a son. They name him Gershom, and he named him this because I've been a sojourner in a foreign land. Verse 23, we also get a time skip. Moses' adopted grandfather, the Pharaoh, dies, and Moses spends until the age of 80 spending time with Jethro. So Moses' story really starts at Exodus 3 to the end of Deuteronomy, from ages 80 to 120. So he's really lived 2 lives already, one in Egypt as a royal and the other as a nomad called to return to Egypt to free Israel. Verses 24 through 25, did God forget about Israel in the covenant? No, this was obviously not the first time Israel complained to God in prayer either. When the text says God remembered, it means God brought into mind the sense that, look what I'm going to do next. The time will come when God will act and fulfill the covenant and its promises he's made. So God appeared many times in person in Genesis, and soon, in this next chapter, he's going to show up for Moses and Israel. God is also acting now because of their faithfulness. Midianites, I should say, it shouldn't be forgotten, worship Yahweh too. The promises of Torah have an exclusive promise for Israel and Judah to produce the Messiah, but there's also a collective plurality for these promises, for all Abrahamites. This should be obvious since in chapter 3, God will reveal himself to Moses on Mount Seir, the mountain of God for the Midianites. Where has God been this whole period of the Old Testament? One of the answers is Edom and Mount Seir, where they worship Yahweh. God's been preparing Israel and Egypt, etc., for many promises to be made, and he's going to use Moses, who will leave Midian, to bring Israel out and lead them to Canaan. So that's the end of that podcast for Exodus 2. And if you enjoy this, I hope you get something out of it. But if you enjoy this, hit like, subscribe, and we'll be doing Exodus 3 next time. So thank you.